I hope you guys can hear that. That is the rain and the thunder that is currently taking over the UK right now. Like, honestly. What is going on, guys? Welcome to this video. My name is Cameron and this is the review for Ultimate Spider-Man Annual Issue 1. This is the first annual after 85 issues and we're finally getting it. And this doesn't really take place, it takes place in continuity with Ultimate Spider-Man, but it's got nothing to do with what happened in the previous issue with Black Cat or anything like that. This is more of like a standalone issue, but it's still in continuity with what's happened. So Peter Parker's still broken up with Mary Jane, Peter Parker still had that awful experience with Black Cat. What happens in this issue carries over into the next Ultimate Spider-Man issues, and it's pretty crazy, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will love it, especially because it involves one of the most favourite characters of the X-Men, Kitty Pryde. Now, I know what you're thinking, you're probably like, oh, Kitty Pryde isn't that major of an X-Men character. Well, she is after this issue, because you'll actually learn to appreciate her character and love her character, and you'll get to know her ultimate character a lot more. She's actually pretty awesome. And now, guys, before we get into this review, let's just recap on what happened in the previous issue. So Spider-Man, Hammerhead, and Elektra pretty much all got the crap beaten out of them. Moon Knight was actually put into a coma, Elektra was killed, Hammerhead was launched out of the window and put into a coma as well. Black Cat saw who Spider-Man was underneath the mask and actually threw up on him. And then Peter Parker went home and Aunt May said that he's going to be kicked out of the house if he keeps lying to her and skipping school and so on. So that is where we stand in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. Now it's time to get into this review, so let's get into it. So opening up the issue, and for the very first time we are introduced to X-Men's Kitty Pryde, who we haven't actually seen since many issues ago when Spider-Man actually didn't have a full Spider-Man costume. And even back then she did show a slight interest in Spider-Man, like she actually had a poster of him on her wall, etc. And what this issue aims to do is to sort of relate Spider-Man to Kitty Pryde and Kitty Pryde back to Spider-Man. And as you can see, as we are opening up the issue and getting into it a little bit further, Kitty Pryde is having problems and she's fighting this dude, and then we go over to Spider-Man and he finds himself in the exact same situation, saying pretty much the exact same things. Now, one of the most striking things about the issue is the art style. When you first open up the issue and see Kitty Pryde, you don't really notice it too much, but when we go over to Ultimate Spider-Man, the art style is crazily different, and it's actually really interesting to have sort of like a change of art style in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics. Now, just to be clear, it is only for this issue, since it's annual issue 1. When we go over to Ultimate Spider-Man issue 86, the art style will go back to normal with Mark Bagley, but for right now, I think it's important to appreciate this art style, just because it's a nice change of pace. And I actually think that the action and the way Spider-Man looks and everything like that is pretty damn awesome. However, my only negative about the art style is when we see Kitty Pryde in normal things and when we see Peter Parker like just being his normal self, I don't really like it too much like that. I think he draws Spider-Man and the action and Rhino and everything like that so much better than he draws like the normal Peter Parker characters and the normal Kitty Pryde characters. It just doesn't look as comic booky as what Ultimate Spider-Man is known for. Now, again, going back to Peter Parker, we can see that Kitty Pryde and Peter Parker are pretty much saying the exact same things, and they relate to each other so much without even realising it. And it's important to see that Kitty Pryde is currently going through what was a breakup, and she's actually got to live in the same house as Iceman, who she's actually recently broken up with. And she's pretty miserable. Now, something that I do feel like was a little bit forward was how Kitty Pryde just randomly brought up Spider-Man and how she wanted to phone Peter Parker. Like, one minute she's talking about how she needs a boyfriend, and then like on the next page she's thought of Peter Parker in her head, and then she's on the phone to him. So it did feel a little bit forced like that, just how it randomly, like Spider-Man this and Spider-Man that sort of thing. Maybe Kitty Pryde has mentioned that she does like Spider-Man and Peter Parker to the X-Men characters before this, and they just haven't addressed that, so it just comes across as if it is a little bit out of the blue. On the other hand though, I do like how Kitty Pryde doesn't actually have to say Spider-Man or Peter Parker's name. The other X-Men just automatically know who she's talking about, and it's pretty awesome. Anyway, moving throughout the issue, this is where the issue actually starts to get good, and it's because it is so relatable, where you like someone and you kind of have to ask them if they want to hang out with you, and you can just feel the tension between the two characters in the pages, and you can relate so much to like what they are saying, where it's kind of awkward and you don't really know how to ask them. It's just really, really cool, and that is one of the best things, as I've said a million times in the past, about Brian Michael Bendis writing the Ultimate Spider-Man comics and still writing this Ultimate Spider-Man Annual Issue 1. He just knows how to relate the characters from the pages to the readers of the comic, and it's amazing. One of the best things as well is that you also feel the relaxation and the relief when Peter actually says yes to hanging out with her, almost like you are right there with the characters in the comic experiencing this thing happen in front of you. I think something that's really noticeable in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics as well is just how confident and out of his shell Peter Parker seems to come across nowadays. I mean, if you remember in the very first issues of the Ultimate Spider-Man series, that's if you actually have been with me for that long, then there is no way that Peter Parker from the first few issues would have met up with a girl randomly that he hardly even knows outside his school and gone on a date with her. So the fact that Peter Parker is doing this and he actually seems really cool about it just shows how much he's grown as a character whilst being Spider-Man. I think one of my favourite things about this issue is just how Kitty Pryde jokes about the mutants and the X-Men taking over the world, and Peter Parker takes this like really seriously, and I thought it was really nice humour to just throw into the comic, especially when we're watching two characters on a date together. And what you've got to remember is that Kitty Pryde knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and that is why they relate so much to each other, because they both run into the same things, and she can understand that Peter Parker could literally wipe the floor with Flash Thompson if he wanted to. So it's nice to see that she understands why he has to sort of not do anything about them when they bully him and stuff like that. So I think the best way to put it is that Peter Parker stays out of fights because he knows he'll win, and that's just awesome. I mean, if you're on a date with a girl and you tell her that you don't get into fights because you pretty much know that you could kill them, then that's pretty badass. So moving throughout the issue, you can see that we're getting into a little bit more of a romantic setting as we go over to the rooftops, and we've got like the sunset happening, and just the colours on the pages running throughout the panels actually become a little bit warmer and a little bit more colourful to demonstrate that romantic side between the two characters that is sort of happening without them even realising it. And it's just a really nice setting to see these two characters, but of course Spider-Man actually gets in the way on this one, and the responsibilities come first, and this is where it actually gets really interesting, where you're like, actually, Kitty Pryde would be perfect for Spider-Man because she can actually look after herself and phase through things to the point where things can actually not even hurt her at all. So there is no danger to her whatsoever when it comes to Spider-Man causing danger to the people he loves. And we actually get a preview of that when Spider-Man and Kitty Pryde head on down to stop a crime. And I love how the Ultimate Spider-Man comics use the Shocker character, also known as Herman, at least in the Ultimate Universe anyway, to demonstrate how Spider-Man and Kitty Pryde could do this together and how it could work together. And it's just really, really awesome. And I thought it was nice to see Shocker in this comic as well, because we actually haven't seen him in a while since the very first few issues of the Ultimate Spider-Man series, so it was nice to see him as well. Anyway, now that we can see these two characters swinging around the city together, you can sort of imagine what it would be like for Kitty Pryde to date Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And you can see that it would actually work out really, really well. And now coming up to the final few pages of this issue, Kitty Pryde actually does have to go home. The X-Men carrier thing has actually come to get her. And again, the colours have brightened up, and it's really one of those things where you can see that Kitty Pryde and Peter Parker are in their own little bubble together, and you can just feel that romantic tension that's happening between the two characters, where they've got to do like an awkward sort of kiss goodbye sort of thing, and both characters just embrace it, and it's a really awesome moment together that kind of seals the deal that these two characters will probably be dating, and they in fact do, and it actually happens for quite a while in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, so you guys better seatbelt in and get ready for the future Ultimate Spider-Man comics, starting from Ultimate Spider-Man issue 86, because they're going to get awesome. And it's a new direction for the Peter Parker character. Now that he's not with Mary Jane anymore, it's going to be very, very interesting. But one of my main things about this is for you guys to let me know what you think of Kitty Pryde compared to Mary Jane. And if you don't really know Kitty Pryde that much, then just sit back and kind of wait just to see what her character is like and get to know her throughout the next Ultimate Spider-Man issues, because she is awesome. That is the end of the issue, and I hope you enjoyed it. That issue was so good in terms of relating Peter Parker and Kitty Pryde to one another. I mean, going back to the very first pages of the issue, we saw that Kitty Pryde was dealing with sort of being an outcast amongst the other mutants, and she wasn't really feeling it. And then we bounced over to Peter Parker, where he was sat in school, and he was feeling like an outcast as well. It's like those two just relate so much to each other. And of course, as you've probably seen throughout the issue, their lives are actually quite similar to one another's. Like, Spider-Man's a superhero, Kitty Pryde's a superhero, and they both deal with the same things, with having no friends, but also not being able to have other people in their lives. And they seem so good together. Their personalities bounce off one another's, and I think that's what I really like about it. As for the art style, one of my favourite things about this comic book was that the art style when Peter Parker was Spider-Man was actually really good, especially when we first turned the page to him being Spider-Man and him fighting that Rhino robot. Obviously, that is the Rhino out of the Ultimate Spider-Man video game. That is where the Rhino of the video game came from. He came from this annual issue 1, and it's so good to see Rhino in a comic book like this, especially because this is the first time we've seen Rhino of the Ultimate Universe in an Ultimate Spider-Man comic book, and it's annual issue 1. To be honest, I wasn't too much of a fan of the art style on Kitty Pryde and Peter Parker at first, but when they were actually on the rooftop and Kitty Pryde and Peter Parker were on the rooftop looking over the horizon and everything like that, that looked so cool, and I actually thought the art style had a little bit more of a realistic feel to it compared to the normal Ultimate Spider-Man comic book art by Mark Bagley. And the sun is coming out. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's awesome that Brian Michael Bendis is still writing the Ultimate Spider-Man annual issue 1, and that's one of my favourite things, is that Brian Michael Bendis oversees all of the Ultimate Spider-Man comic books. He's on literally every single issue of the Ultimate Spider-Man series, and even the Miles Morales comics as well. It is crazy. As for the ending of the comic, I really like that Kitty Pryde and Spider-Man actually did kiss each other. I felt like it was deserved because we did get to know their characters a little bit more, and I think Kitty Pryde at first, she does come across as a threat to Mary Jane, you know, like, because obviously we've been reading these Ultimate Spider-Man comics for the last 85 issues, and we know Mary Jane as the one for Peter Parker. So when Kitty Pryde comes into it, if you could imagine when this issue first released years ago, there was probably a little bit of anguish amongst the comic book fans, but the more that you learn about Kitty Pryde and the more she's in these Ultimate Spider-Man comics, the more you sort of like her and probably prefer her maybe to Mary Jane, at least for some of you guys. Me, I still prefer Mary Jane, but I think Kitty Pryde is just as awesome as well. Also, one of the best things about this was that when this issue first released, people sort of thought that Kitty Pryde wouldn't stay in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics for like very long, when really after this issue, Kitty Pryde is in the regular Ultimate Spider-Man comics, issue 86, issue 87, issue 88, so on and so on and so on, for quite a while. That is the end of this issue. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I thought Kitty Pryde being introduced like this was awesome, especially because Peter Parker hasn't really had much of a good run with the ladies and the girls and everything like that, especially with Mary Jane and Black Cat recently, and Elektra even hated him. So yeah, I think it's time that Spider-Man gets a little bit of romance once again in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, and I can't wait to see where it goes. Guys, let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Let's aim for 300 likes on this video. Kitty Pryde's in it now, and it's an Ultimate Spider-Man annual, the first annual of the entire series, so aim for 300 likes. And yeah, if you like these videos, again, hit the subscribe button for more videos like this, and don't forget about the giveaway of the Spider-Man pop figure. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you, and I'll see you later.